There were a lot of people who saw President Trump's commitment to religious freedom up close. His former White House Chief of Staff, Reince Priebus, was one of them. He was there when the 45th president issued the first executive order on religious liberty, restoring the right of men and women everywhere to live and work according to their faith. It happened on the National Day of Prayer, but for most Americans, after 8 years of Obama, it was the National Day of Answered Prayer. Reince was also a longtime chair of the RNC and worked on political campaigns all across the country. And he's a great friend, and I'm glad he's with us today. Reince, welcome to Pray, Vote, Stand.
Happy to be here, Tony. Always a pleasure to be with you.
President Trump, as he was a candidate, was not really seen as a pro-religious freedom candidate. But when you look back on his 4 years, I'm hard-pressed to find another president who's done more to advance religious freedom in this country than he did.
You know, you're 100% right, Tony, and you were at the head of a lot of these accomplishments of the Trump administration, just doing such a good job at your organization. But you're right. I mean, who would have thought that a billionaire from Manhattan would be the person to check the box on so many things that are important to people of faith? And I've got to tell you, I mean, being behind the scenes with them, he believed in these initiatives. I'm sure you're going to tick through some of them, but just even on the very first day, when we put together the Mexico City policy, he didn't bat an eye, and he agreed that we shouldn't be spending taxpayer dollars in foreign countries with NGOs that are performing abortions. You know, it wasn't like he was asking, well, maybe we should think twice about this, or who are we going to offend if we? It was just like, no, we shouldn't be using taxpayer money to perform abortions. And so that was the person he was. And I think, along with the economy and judges and the things he did in the Supreme Court, which is another thing that's important for people of faith, I think that the evangelicals and Christians and Jews and everyone else in between should be thrilled with the accomplishments of Donald Trump.
I want to go back to one of the first big mile markers in the Trump administration on religious freedom, and it was one that you worked on very hard, because I know you and I had many conversations about it up until the moment it was signed, and that was President Trump in the Rose Garden announcing the first religious freedom executive order 4 years ago. Here's a clip of that day.
Today, my administration is leading by example as we take historic steps to protect religious liberty in the United States of America. We will not allow people of faith to be targeted, bullied, or silenced anymore.
It took us a while to get to that point, but that was a major starting point for what this administration did on behalf of religious freedom.
Well, it was a historic day, and you played a big part of it. As you said, we had so many conversations about it. You think about this. I mean, to get to a place, when you look at that executive order as May 4th, 2017, every sentence in that executive order takes, general counsels from departments. You have this government bureaucracy that is fighting you along the way, because you're basically telling departments that in every way possible within your department, you need to make sure that you're finding ways to make life easier for people of faith, that you're not persecuting people of faith for exercising their freedom of speech, that you're not trying to shut down churches when a pastor wants to get up there and talk about issues that are important to people of faith. And getting through all of that, and then bringing it to the Rose Garden with leaders like yourself and others in this faith community, and having the whole ceremony opened up by, I think it was Stephen Curtis Chapman that sang at that ceremony, and the President of the United States. I mean, I think it's remarkable. And there's more than that, as you know. He tasked the Secretary of State and the USAID to target and to prioritize international religious freedom throughout the entire world, moving the capital from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. Everywhere you look, this was an administration that did hit a home run for people of faith, no doubt about it.
Looking back, before the Trump administration began, just in those early days when you were at the RNC and then brought into the administration, are you surprised at how much this president leaned in to these core values of the sanctity of human life, religious liberty?
Well, you know, it's a really good question. I guess that's why you're asking me the questions. I guess I was a little surprised. It didn't take me long to realize that President Trump was going to actually follow through with all these things that he said. But, you know, he cared about the views and opinions of faith leaders across the country. If you remember on Inauguration Day, when we had the service at the church across the street from the one that was burned, actually across the street from the White House, you remember he didn't just have, I hate to say it, he didn't have milquetoast, you know, preachers up there, you know, where you couldn't tell what they were referring to. He had real people of faith that were pretty hardcore evangelical faith leaders up there, pretty much preaching the truth and the gospel in front of President Trump, and he loved it. So it wasn't too long after that, he signed the Mexico City executive order without batting an eye. He cared about the issue on transgender in the military. He hit everything on the federal judges. He marched right to this order on religious freedom, then over to Tel Aviv. I mean, he really didn't miss much when it came to the things that people of faith wanted. So, and by the way, you know, it happened pretty quick. So there wasn't a long time period for me to be that surprised, but I would say initially, yeah, because he didn't really try to calculate the politics of it as much as I think other political leaders do.
And I just say, I know you've touched on some of the high points, but folks can actually see the entire list of accomplishments on the website, PrayVoteStand.org, where we have compiled those over the course of those 4 years, and it, quite frankly, is very, very impressive. Reince, are you concerned with what is happening now under the present administration, the Biden administration, and the fact that they're actually dismantling a lot of the accomplishments of the Trump administration?
Yeah, I mean, this is a really scary thing because this is not, look, I think taxes are important. I think, you know, what's happening in healthcare is important. Of course it is. But when you're talking about morality, when you're talking about issues of faith, when you're talking about unborn children, yeah, this is life or death. And it is very scary what's happening. And I think we are coming to a moral crisis in America. And I think it's important for people of faith to not be discouraged, but to be even more encouraged to be involved in the political process. I would encourage pastors to not turn your church into vanilla ice cream and cotton candy on Sunday morning and be afraid to tell people what matters as a person of faith and why it's important to be salt and light in the world, not just in church on Sunday on basic religious beliefs, but to be informed and to be salt and light in the political world as well. So I think it's incumbent on everybody to lock arms and talk about what the truth of these matters, why it all really matters. And pastors have to lead the way. They have tremendous authority. I used to tell people when I was at both the RNC and the White House, because I had a lot of people of faith come to me, and a lot of them would complain about where things were going in politics. And I used to tell pastors, don't ask more of me as a political leader than you're willing to lead on Sunday morning. Don't try to hold me to a higher standard than what you're doing in front of your own congregation. And I would say to all of us that we need to really lead on these issues, both politically, people like me, and pastors and faith leaders that are watching this program as well.
Yeah, I remember, in fact, I've shared it with thousands of pastors one time years ago. You said, why do pastors want me to talk about things on the Sunday TV shows that they won't preach about from their own pulpits?
Right.
And pretty good and concise. And we've been challenging pastors to do just that. And I think under President Trump, there was they were emboldened to do even more. But you know, we prayed during the Trump administration. We had the protection, we had the encouragement. But I think now under the Biden administration, we have even more encouragement. Maybe not the protection, but we
Right.
know we need to be praying for this nation and working. Pray, vote, and stand. That's what believers across this country need to be doing. And Reince Priebus, I want to thank you for joining us. Always great to talk with you, and thanks for all that you did to see many of these accomplishments come to pass in the Trump administration.
Well, you were a big part of that, Tony, so thank you and to everyone watching. Appreciate it. God bless you.
All right, have a great evening.